It's my pleasure to be introducing Winston Eng. Currently works as the Technical Services Officer in Ergonomics for the Human Resources and Skills Development in Canada, HRSDC, labor program. As a Technical Services Officer in Ergonomics, he has participated in working groups, assisted in the development of guidance material, and trained labor programs health and safety officers across Canada on the federal ergonomics regulatory requirements. Previously, Mr. Eng worked as a health and safety officer for HRSDC, and during this time he worked with employers and employees to create a safer workplace by conducting inspections and investigations in a wide range of industries. Mr. Eng graduated from the University of Waterloo with a Bachelor of Science degree, honors kinesiology, and it's my pleasure to ask Winston to come up to the podium.
Thank you. Okay, we have quite a bit to cover here, so I'll just get right into it. First of all, I just want to remind you that the requirements I'll be going over only applies to employers under federal jurisdiction. Okay. So the ergonomic requirements were introduced as amendments in December 2007 as part of the Hazard Prevention Program regulations. Now, from what I was informed, that everyone here would have a good understanding of the Hazard Prevention Program regulations, so we'll just be covering the ergonomic aspect. So we'll have a look at ergonomics and musculoskeletal injuries, as well as where these amendments were made. And we'll go over some guidance material, tools, and checklists that we're providing for assistance to comply with the requirements. And we'll summarize some key points, as well as look at some resources available for assistance. So our labor program's definition of ergonomics is a scientific study of the relationship between people and the working environment with a view to improving safety, ease of action, and efficiency. So it's important to remember that our requirements focus on the physical aspect of ergonomics and musculoskeletal injuries. Now, we view MSI as an injury or disorder of the musculoskeletal system that may be caused or aggravated by hazards in the workplace. So as most of you might know, that the musculoskeletal system includes joints, tendons, blood vessels, ligaments, nerves, spinal discs, and related soft tissue. Okay. So what MSI does not include are injuries that result directly from falling, slipping, tripping, being struck by an object or knocked against something, being caught in or on something, or being in a motor vehicle accident. MSI can also be referred to as a musculoskeletal disorder, which is what the Ministry of Labor uses, also referred to as cumulative trauma disorder, repetitive strain injury, occupational overuse syndrome, and sprains and strains. Now, labor program chose to use MSI because of the word injury, and it's consistent with the purpose of the Canada Labour Code Part 2, which is to prevent accident and injuries. So when looking at jurisdiction, federal jurisdiction, MSI accounts for approximately 30% of all work-related injuries accepted for compensation. So this is why our focus is on MSI. So to significantly reduce the disabling injury rates, we have to reduce MSI. Okay, so let's look where the amendments were put in for implementation plan. Now the employer has to ensure that ergonomic-related hazards are identified, assessed, and are eliminated or reduced as much as reasonably possible. As well as there's any person assigned to identify and assess as is necessary instruction and training. In the hazard identification and assessment regulation, you now have to take into account ergonomic related factors such as the physical demands of the work activities, the work environment, the work procedures, the organization of the work, the circumstances in which the work activities are performed, as well as the characteristics of materials, goods, persons, animals, things, and workspaces, and feature of tools and equipment. So this amendment really is pointing you in the right direction of where we want you to focus on. And again, it's quite clear it's the physical aspect. When we're looking at the preventative measures, there were amendments made to expand on the elimination and the administrative procedures. The elimination now includes engineering controls. They may involve mechanical aids, equipment design or redesign, and that take into account physical attributes of the employee. And then for administrative procedures, it also includes management of hazard exposure, recovery periods, and the management of work patterns and methods. So again, for the preventive measures, it's pointing you to the area where you should be focusing on. So now, as well, if there's any change to your work environment, your work duties, your equipment, your practices or processes, you now have to make sure you ensure that you're addressing ergonomic-related hazards. Okay. And the last amendment was put in the program evaluation, 19.7. And when you're doing your program evaluation and you're evaluating the components, you also have to look at first aid. That includes records and statistics relating to ergonomic-related first aid and injuries. Okay. So that's where the amendments were made. I just want to make a quick note here for 19.8, reports and records. For those who are under federal jurisdiction, you know that previously the written program evaluation report, a copy of it had to be sent to the minister. However, that is no longer a requirement. Okay. However, you're still required to have the written program evaluation report on hand and accessible in case a health and safety officer wishes to see it. So there should be changes to that coming up soon. Okay, you should have this copy of the flow chart in your package. And what we did is for the hazard prevention program for ergonomic related hazards, we broke it down into 6 steps. So when complying with our requirements, the best place probably to start is to handle the obvious ergonomic related hazards first. And with the obvious hazards, you can go from step 3, which is the methodology, and you can fast track to step 5, which is the preventative measures. That also gets you some confidence in going through some of the processes. Now, we also developed some guidance materials, tools, and checklists, and very similar to what the Ministry of Labor is using. We want to make sure there was consistency of approach, as we know there are some employers we have who are both under federal and provincial jurisdiction, as well as many unions have members that are either in the federal or provincial jurisdiction, to avoid some confusion. Now, unfortunately, due to the length of the guidebooks and tools, you don't have them in front of you, but THSEO will be posting the electronic copies for the guidebooks and tools I'll be going over. And as well, it's important to note that they are all optional. You do not have to use them to meet the requirements of the regulations. So we have one guidebook that covers the whole process, looking at steps through 1 through 6. We also have materials to help you with step 2 for employee education, okay, to assist you in educating the employee regarding ergonomic-related hazards. For step 3, we have information to help you with investigation reports, with workplace inspections, with employee reports surveys, and then as well for step 4, we have a tool to help you with the hazard identification and assessment. For step 5, we have pages of preventative measures, common preventative measures that have been used to give you some idea. And then in step 6, we're providing an example of what a program evaluation report should look like based on ergonomic related factors. So we'll start with the main guide, which is titled Guide on the Prevention of Musculoskeletal Injuries. It also makes references to the other tools and publications that we're providing for assistance. So this includes an introduction. It gives you a definition of terms. It also lists the financial costs due to ergonomic-related hazards. It takes each part of the regulation and gives you an explanation and lists some key points to help you comply. And as well, it describes the common ergonomic-related hazards we're asking to look at. So it looks at the physical demands, work activity, explains work environment, work procedures, organization of work, circumstances in which work activities are performed. Okay. Now, this guide also has an appendix, and it has a number of pages listing common preventative measures related to various ergonomic-related hazards, such as grip, awkward postures, excessive force. And you know, it might help you come up with preventive measures, or at least point you in the right direction in terms of what to look at. And then we have the guide to employee education of musculoskeletal injuries. So this is something that can be used by employers to teach employees about ergonomics with a focus on MSI prevention. It's a more compact version of the main guide. It doesn't go into quite as much detail with the regulations, but it also includes the employee's duty to report ergonomic-related hazards, as well as it describes signs and symptoms to employees in hopes that it helps them better report signs and symptoms as they perform their job tasks. Then we come to the general guide for identifying ergonomic-related hazards. So this is something that can be used for workplace inspections, assessments, and investigations. I provided a little example. So we have the ergonomic-related factor, the grip force, and we have the top one there is pinch grip. And it says pinch gripping unsupported objects weighing 1 kilogram or more per hand for more than 2 hours per day. So we check if it's required of the job task, meaning it's a higher risk, and then you probably want to look into it further. This tool also includes lifting, lowering tables, and pushing and pulling table. They're fairly easy to use. There's instructions provided how to use it. So you would just looks at the weight lifted, the frequency, distance of the hands from the body, distance of the weight being lifted, and then you would just line up with the table and find out what the recommended maximum weight is. Okay. We have employee input on potential ergonomic-related hazards. Now, it's essential to get feedback from employees. They are doing the job task, so they know the job the best. This is another checklist kind of format, but it's important to know that, for the employees to know that the tool alone is not enough to determine if ergonomic-related hazard controls should be implemented, should be used with other hazard identification methods. Especially useful if you have a large amount of employees and you want to get their opinions on how the tasks are being done. Okay, as you can see, it looks similar to the other checklist we just looked at. For the MSI hazard awkward posture, it says, do you frequently assume these postures and or hold them for a long time? And then the first statement there is work with neck bent forward, chin to chest. Now you notice it's much more subjective. You have the words frequently and long time. Okay? It doesn't have the concrete times and weights that the other checklists have. It doesn't have lifting tables or pushing, pulling tables. It's much more general and subjective. We also included a guide to address ergonomic-related hazards with a computer workstation. The checklist that we adopted from the Manitoba Labour and Immigration. It's going to be fairly similar to the other kind of computer workstation checklists you've seen. We like this one because it also provides common solutions for the ergonomic-related hazards listed in the checklist. Now, it also provides the employer, it gives an example of what a task-specific checklist looks like. Okay, hopes that, and maybe they would create their own checklist and customize it to the tasks at their workplace. And as well, computer workstations are fairly common, so it's a tool that definitely a lot of employers can use. And they also have the freedom to change it however they want, to customize it to their own needs. We have a guide to investigating musculoskeletal injuries. Now, it's intended to help with investigation of MSI and help filling out the hazardous occurrence incident report form that we require for disabling injuries. Initially, it was intended as an interactive guide. We've worked with the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, CCOHS, on this. However, there's been some delays, so temporarily we have a hard copy of this guide. So the idea is that you would click on a body part that you're investigating that was involved in the accident. So maybe it could be lower back, could be shoulders, and then you would click on the job task that was being performed. So lifting, pushing, pulling, lifting awkward load, and then it would come up with a list of possible solutions. And if those solutions apply, then you can take that and insert it in the corrective measures in the hazardous occurrence reporting form. So we're finding a lot of the hazardous occurrence reporting forms are incomplete or not properly filled out. And the last checklist is for the evaluation of ergonomic-related hazard prevention program. So this one's obviously geared towards the ergonomics aspect, but you can customize this checklist to look at the whole hazard prevention program and its hazards, okay? We get a lot of questions on what it should look like. We provide an example of one way that can look like. So in the shaded in area, you'll see that in this portion that I have up here, it's looking at the process for recognizing ergonomic-related hazards. And then there's various statements, such as number 13 there says, surveys are used to collect MSI-related information from workers. So you notice there's, in brackets it says BP. What it stands for is best practice. It means not required, but it is recommended. And then there's other statements you notice above that have either references from the Canada Labour Code or from its regulations, meaning that it's required. And again, the employer can customize it wherever they want and tailor it to their needs. Okay, so this program is consistent with other MSI programs, such as Ministry of Labour. I mean, there's so many other resources that everyone can use. Of course, we have the THSEO, IEPA, Ministry of Labour, CCOHS. Now, I know one question everyone's probably asking under federal is how long they have to comply with these regulations. There's no easy answer with that. It's done on a case-by-case basis, and it's really up to the health and safety officer. But let's put it this way, you still have to prioritize all your hazards in the workplace. So if you're an employer that has to deal with fairly serious issues, such as confined space or hazardous substances, and all your resources are being used to deal with those issues, then obviously the ergonomic-related hazards will have to wait. Okay, so it can take some, or it also can take a lot of time depending how many issues you have, ergonomic-related hazards in your workplace as well. The tools and checklists, again, are optional. You can use any way you want as long as you comply with the regulations. And something else I wanted to make note is that when you start implementing preventative measures for your ergonomic-related hazards, you have to remember that likelihood is the employees using different muscle groups, different movements that they might not have been used to, so they might be a little sore. There's going to be time to adapt to the process. So try not to evaluate the preventative measures too quickly. Give them time to adapt to the process. Before I answer your questions, hope I didn't go through that too quickly, but you always ask your health and safety associations. You always call a toll-free number, and I'll direct you to the closest district office to where you work. and a health and safety officer will answer any questions, and you can also request the guidebooks and materials that I went through through them. Okay, thank you.
Syed Naqvi from OCA. The toolbox that you showed just now, the guideline, how different is it from the OSHCO-MSD prevention guidelines for Ontario? I don't know if you're familiar with that document. Is it?
Yeah,
was it developed after that guideline, or?
It was around the same time. We tried to use a lot of the same tools and checklists again because there's some overlap with the provincial and federal jurisdiction. Last thing we wanted was one jurisdiction to do it one way, and then to have another jurisdiction do another way, and then you get some confusion. So the tools and checklists are very similar to that. The lifting tables, lifting, lowering tables, pushing and pulling tables are based off the modified SNOOC. So it's the same things they're using as well. And you know, if you find another tool from another jurisdiction, whether it's Ministry of Labor, OSHA, Australia, you know, if you like that better, feel free to use it.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Winston.